Can you say hi to the camera? Look, Ryder. Can you say hi? Can you wave? He is about to be 1, y'all, in like Sunday. We're on Friday, so just a few days, and this little guy is just growing and wanting to play, wanting to be everywhere, so I'm gonna let him run around. And I have been meaning to do this video for a really long time, his birth story, for like a year. I've been trying to get it done, and so finally we are at the year mark, and I decided, I'm like, you know what, I need to just do this and document it, because it was really supernatural. It was the most amazing birth experience. And I know I've only had one, but like, it made me ready to give birth again, as crazy as that sounds. And so I want to share with you guys what we did to prepare, really, and then what we did during the birth, our providers, and everything like above. Yeah. So maybe you can take things from it, but just know that what I'm sharing about birth stories, that trust me, I was on YouTube watching so many birth stories whenever I was pregnant with Ryder. So if you're watching this and you haven't had a baby yet, and you're looking into videos trying to get an idea, there are plenty of things that you can take from this, but just know your experience is going to be your own, and it's going to be exactly what you make of it. And obviously there's things that go as unplanned, but for the most part, see, he's getting hungry. For the most part, we can really do our best to prepare for a great supernatural birth. So that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah. Okay, so long story short, as far as like when we found out we were pregnant with Ryder, it was November. We were going to like Thanksgiving with Mike's side of the family at their ranch, and we spent the weekend with them. And apparently I got really emotional with just like little things. But I didn't think anything of it. I just thought I was being emotional, and Mike can attest to that. I was being very emotional for every little thing. So yeah, and that was like the first kind of signs of it. I wasn't sick there at the beginning. Are you shaking your food? He loves his little snacks. He might be out soon, so we might have to replenish them. But yeah, so I did not realize that me being emotional wreck was because I was pregnant with this guy, but it was. And then we got back home and I started my cycle, my period. This video is gonna be a little TMI. It's gonna talk about birth. It's gonna talk about cycles and periods and all that kind of stuff. So if that's not your cup of tea, I would just move on. But if you are somebody who does want to know this information, then this is for you. So anyways, we got home the first weekend of December. I got on what I thought was my period. It was just like spotting, which is kind of odd. I'm like, oh, this is nice. No cramping. We got this. And then lo and behold, it's just stopped completely. And then Mike was like, Angel, you need to get a pregnancy test. And he knew from the beginning that I was pregnant. He kept telling me, he even told me at the ranch whenever I was really emotional, he's like, you're pregnant. I was like, no, I'm not pregnant. So he called it. I got the pregnancy test. Needless to say, Ryder was our like most exciting surprise we've ever had. And I just love the way that God designed it that way, that God knew what we needed. And that was me being pregnant with Ryder. Yeah. So that was our little bit of pregnancy before we knew. And then as far as our first trimester goes, and even second trimester goes, I was just very tired, very thirsty, again, craved the Skittles, anything tardy. I had to pee constantly, which is really weird because by the third trimester, I really didn't have to pee that much. So that was interesting. But yeah, so starting though the midway through the first trimester all the way till the third trimester, I threw up every morning, which was okay because it didn't last throughout the day. I had 2 days where he made me sick all throughout the whole entire day, and that was horrible. So props to you women out there who are pregnant and are sick through the whole day. But for mine, I would just sleep in to try to pass that morning. I would eat all the things like peanut butter crackers, just anything of protein before I got up. Nothing seemed to work, so I just didn't fight it. I threw up in the mornings, and then I was good to go for the day. We opted to do a midwifery type hospital experience. I wanted to do a natural birth. Mike and I really view natural birth as something that is God designed, and so that was just our conviction and what we wanted to do. My mom had all 5 of us naturally, and my sister-in-law, my sister, all of us. So the kind of group that I'm around is we are all very naturalistic in that sense that God designed the woman's body to give birth. But I'm just sharing my experience. So I want to pause right there and say, like, if you want to do a natural birth, like, what I am saying is just our experience. Did you drop it? Here, play with your toys. What I'm saying is just our experience and what we wanted. But however you birth your baby is amazing. It's a miracle. It's God breathed. So that was up to the 3rd trimester. And then here is the deal. This is where things went south because Ryder was born in 2020. If you remember last year, you will know that the hospitals went berserk. Everything within the hospital was definitely interesting with 2020, with the COVID and all of that. So we actually had opted to do care with a midwifery in the hospital. And I liked that idea because I had never given birth before, so I felt that I was safe being in the hospital, but also being able to do it naturally like we had planned with the midwives there. So long story short, as far as our care goes, we went into my appointment. Well, I went into my appointment because halfway through, Mike was not able to come with me to my appointments anymore, which honestly, don't get me started on that because Mike is just as a part of this child as I am, and so I think it's just pretty crazy that they made women go in by themselves. That is besides the point. So yeah, at 33 weeks, I went into the appointment by myself. We had a list of questions that we wanted to ask just to make sure that we were on the same page with our midwives. But unfortunately, although midwives are great at the hospital and they still give you more of a choice in the hospital, there is still hospital policy. Ah, Ryder, don't fall off. Sit down, buddy. On your bottom. Hold on, I have a runaway baby. So some of the questions we asked were what happens if we give birth to Ryder and we get a positive COVID test, because in the hospital they test everybody for COVID, and they weren't able to tell me whether or not the hospital policy would be to take the child or to not take the child. So I'm like, okay, well, number one, Ryder's not leaving my side after I have him. He's lived inside me all this time. Even if I did test positive or I had COVID, I'm not worried about it because his immune system, and I believe in the immune system and the power to fight that. But then the second question was, what if we do not take the COVID test? Because Mike and I both are very like, I don't know how to explain it, but we just don't like to be forced to do something that we don't want to do. And so I was not going to be opting for the COVID test at all. And so they said if we did not do the COVID test, that we would be having to, like, they would have to treat us like we had COVID, which would result in us like wearing masks, me having to wear a mask during laboring, and then like Mike having to be in a full bodysuit along with the midwives, and they would have to treat us like we are ill and very sick when, if we were feeling fine and we're 100%, they would still have to treat us like we were like a disease basically. So I wasn't opting for that either. So when I left there, I called up Mike, and I'm like, I just don't feel really good about this at all. I already feel tense, and fear and being tense is the number one cause to prolong a labor. And I knew that because we took 3 different courses, a lot of mind preparation training, and there's a lot of books like the Supernatural Childbirth book. We did hypnobirthing. I'll have to share more about hypnobirthing because it's really amazing. And then we got an app called the Christian Hypnobirthing app. And I will share more about that later on, but we did all these mind preparation things, so we knew that fear was of the devil, and it's also the #1 cause of any complications, not just labor. So we did not want to be fearful, and I did not want to have Ryder taken from me if I didn't opt to do the COVID test, because they would have to treat you like you had COVID, and if they treat you like COVID, it could still result in them taking him from us to put him away where he's safe. Okay, I just let Ryder go with Mike because he was over it. So we were just dealing with a lot of uncertainty, knowing like what were we gonna do. We didn't feel comfortable at the hospital, but then we had the doubt in our mind, well, there is a birth center, but they're kind of further away from the hospital. If there's like an emergency situation, we have to be rushed to the hospital, like what are we gonna do? And so we started really looking about that, praying really a lot about it, as I'm sure so many women going through birth at that time can relate. It's definitely like not something you want to have to deal with your first baby for sure, but I'm honestly thankful that was our experience, because Christ allowed that to bring us to our new midwives at Three Sisters. Her name is Jocelyn and the other is Bethany. They are a mother-daughter team, and so we went to go tour. We had 2 appointments. We went to go tour there, and then we had planned to tour another one. It's actually closer to the hospital, and it's like God gave us immediately like the certainty that we needed as soon as we met Jocelyn. Like, to give you an example, when we left, Mike's like, cancel that other appointment, we're staying here. Like, that's how much he loved it. And I'll tell you this, what was amazing about it is that they viewed Mike as the leader of our home, and that if we didn't agree together and that like Mike wasn't 100% on board for a birth center birth, that they would not take us. They viewed us as a team of 50-50. They weren't gonna make Mike not join in on my appointments. And like, I loved my hospital midwives, they were awesome, but the care that we got out of hospital was just night and day difference. And I'll tell you right now, like, I don't know why I doubted myself in not being able to give birth the way I wanted to, and that I had to have a hospital to do that in. That was my doubt that was creeping into my head, saying like, I don't know if my body is designed for this. But then when I went there, they explained how my body is designed for this, and it was just, the best way I can explain it is like, if you're a girl, you'll get this. Shopping for a bra at Nordstrom's versus like Walmart. Like Nordstrom's, you get walked through an experience, and it's like a hand-holding experience, and they teach you and then they show you. And the Walmart is just like you do it yourself. So that's the best way I can explain it. It just really spoke to us, and that's the route we went. Obviously, however anybody births their baby, again, is like, that's awesome, and I love that. But the thing is that we experienced is midwives, as though they are still great in the hospital, there is still hospital policy, and there's only so much they can do to alter around that. And the whole payment situation with the hospital, trying to get that back since I didn't birth there was very difficult, going back and forth with them. But my insurance was great. I use Samaritan. It's not insurance, it's Christian Sharings. So if you've never heard of them, definitely look it up, because they covered everything from my essential oils I used for pregnancy and birth, which ends up being a lot, and then my vitamins, things that my midwives at Three Sisters, my new midwives, they prescribed, and my insurance covered all that. We only had to pay like just a few $100s for the whole birth itself. So if you are not liking your insurance, I highly recommend a Christian sharing program. It has been amazing for us, and I really love the care that they give us there too, because they also pray for us and stuff like that whenever we have a need. So that was our whole pregnancy journey. And this ended up being a little bit longer than I thought, because I wanted this to be our birth story, but I had to tell you like the before to get you to like what happened with our birth and why it was as amazing as it was, and what all we overcame through that, through COVID and through changing our midwives and all of that. So I might make this might be its own video because it's kind of long, and then I'm going to do a part 2, which is actually the birth itself and what all that entails, stuff like along those lines. So part 2 coming soon.